A failed exorcism. It takes a hell of a lot to get a proper exorcism these days. The suspected victim must be placed under psychiatric watch for a month, then the victim must see a physician for possible physical abnormalities, then two priests must visit the victim to feel the presence. One solo, then the other exactly a week later, then I come in. I'm not an official member of the church, mostly so they can distance themselves from me if anything goes wrong, nor am I a priest, but since I was 17 the church has trained me in the process of exorcism. It's not like the movies where the exorcist goes around the property, speaks to family, etc. No, that process is done before I arrive. I am simply there to perform the exorcism and leave. I am only given minimal information beforehand. For this, Father Aaron, name changed obviously, an American representative of the church, arrived at my apartment with a folder, shook my hand, and gave me the same "if you need anything, you have my number" spiel before leaving. I brought the folder back into my living room, sat down, and opened it up. Location, sorry, can't tell you guys exactly, but I can say the American Midwest. Background, Father contacted the church after multiple supernatural occurrences in his home, including his 16-year-old son crawling on the ceiling and ripping a deer apart with his own hands. Qualifications, met. Difficulty, arduous. I threw the folder down in anger. Arduous meant a multi-hour affair which really takes a toll on one's body. Not to mention I had completed an arduous exorcism just 6 months prior, but nearly snapped my left femur during it and was hopping to lay low for a time. But sadly, because of the oath I swore, I can't refuse jobs. So just a few days later, after gathering all the necessary materials for an arduous exorcism, I was on a plane. After a 4-hour flight and a 50-minute drive to this damn secluded farm, it was nearing midnight when I made my way up the steps, towards a hulking man in overalls that honestly looked like a straw house ready to fall over. "Carmine," the man said in a deep but exhausted voice. "Yes, sir, how is everything?" I said, shaking his hand and nodding what probably used to be an iron grip now reduced to a light squeeze. "Well, sir, things have taken a turn. Ever since Father Heleva locked Owen in the basement, the activity has gotten more active and more vicious." I could see the bags under his eyes meet with his thick mustache. Joseph, Owen's father, walked me into the lavish farmhouse. "This began 2 months ago?" I asked, taking in the weird Art Deco memorabilia strewn throughout the house, something I never would have attributed to a man like Joseph. "Yes, sir, he took a hike in the woods behind the house and something got him. When he came back, he wouldn't act right. He'd talk in a strange language, moved things without touching them, climbed where he couldn't possibly, and then the other things started." Joseph was obviously tense. I couldn't tell if it was because we were nearing the basement door or because of what he had just said. "What other things?" "Well, activity outside of Owen started. I saw impossible creatures around the property that when I approached, they'd disappear. I saw horrific things happen in the house, like somebody hanging themselves from my rafters, a murder in the bathroom, all unknown people. But when I saw myself burning alive in my living room chair, I called the church," he said as he unlocked the last of 4 heavy-duty locks on the door. "Well, I'm gonna help Owen out, don't you worry, sir," I said hurriedly and slipped inside the door. I've always been bad at small talk. The basement was somewhat finished. The steps that I had taken led into the laundry room. Crosses covered the walls, all nailed in the same places that Christ was. At the very end of this room was a door that was half off its hinges, but still had a cross nailed to it. Beyond the door was the storage room, but I could already see where I was headed. Straight ahead, a shirtless, slender boy with long, matted red hair, and these dark scarlet veins spread across his body, was chained to the wall. "Finally, company," the thing that was inside Owen said to me as I placed my suitcase on one of the shelves nearest to me. It had a booming but raspy voice. "Can I ask what your name is?" I asked, still grabbing everything I needed to begin. "You wouldn't understand even if I told you," the thing said. I turned to it, now holding a bottle of blessed water and a foot-long iron cross. "I'm well versed in Latin," I responded confidently. The thing smiled and let out a string of sounds that made me feel like I was having a stroke. The noises it was making sure sounded like it was trying to speak complete sentences, but it wasn't any language I had ever heard, and even then, the sounds made my head hurt. "Enough," I yelled and tossed holy water on it. It didn't seem to have any effect, but that wasn't abnormal. Many cocky demons with enough will can hide any pain blessed water causes it. I began to say my prayers of deliverance when the thing began to speak again, this time in a commanding tone. My head rang, the ground shook, and through tears of fright, the world blurred away. I finally got my bearings and looked around. We were no longer in the basement anymore. We were on a cliff overlooking a carnage-laden meadow. Writhing, slithering things moved through the grass below. I thought I would never look away, glued to the terrors below, until I realized something horrifying. Tusk, Tusk, such an unprepared man, the thing said. It was now standing at the edge of the cliff, staring daggers into me. I tried to remain in control, though my heart was pounding in my chest. I raised my cross. I rebuke you in the end. I was interrupted by a large boom and then another, both coming from the side of the cliff. Something was crawling up it. The thing began to cackle as the booms got closer. Whatever was climbing the cliff was about to reach us. All of my senses began to overload. My head felt like it was being torn from my body. Everything in my vision was overtaken by white. Then we were back in the basement. The thing inside Owen was back in chains, grinning at me, knowing something that I didn't. I put my materials aside and ran out of the basement and into a bewildered Joseph. What the hell? Your son, he's not. Wait, do you know whereabouts your son was accosted by this creature? I asked, trying to mask the terror in my voice. In the valley between the hills straight behind the house, about a mile out, he was able to tell me in a moment of clarity. But what a boo. Has anything weird but non-supernatural happened around here recently? I interrupted. Well, now that I think about it, there was some kind of hippie commune that moved in over near those hills. But they couldn't have anything to do with this. They were gone about a month before. Before he could finish, I was running towards the door, yelling back that I was not leaving. I just needed to see this place for myself. Thanks to my handy distance counter on my phone, I reached the hills without incident. The first thing I noticed as I started to climb up, it was the smell of something burning. I looked around me. Everything seemed just fine, not an ember to be found, but it was like an inferno had just been put out. When I finally got to the top of the hill, I looked down and saw what I needed to see, a wooden shack. I used some fallen branches and my phone light to carefully climb down. It was pretty small, maybe a tiny bit smaller than your average backyard shed. The first thing I noticed was something painted on the front door, a symbol. The best way I can describe it is a U with two lines intersecting halfway down. Once I saw that, I turned on my phone's video camera, the flash, and made sure to document everything. The inside smelled horrible, like rotting flesh mixed with stale bread. There were posters all over the walls and recently emptied jars and bowls on the counter. One of the posters was of a series of constellations. Someone had circled certain stars within the constellations. A second poster had a picture of what I now know was Venus, with that same symbol drawn strategically on the planet, along with some nonsense math problems right next to it. A third poster was hand-drawn. It was of some deformed eye opening up inside the ground of an open field. After looking at that one, I began feeling like I had when the thing brought me to that cliff. I was seeing spots by the time I scrambled out the door. Trying to keep myself together, I leaned against the shack and took deep breaths as I opened up Father Aaron's contact and hit FaceTime. After a solid 20 seconds of ringing, a very grumpy and sleepy Father Aaron popped up on my screen. "What happened? Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice a mixture of concern and annoyance. "Owen the boy, I don't think he's possessed," I stammered out. "Are you mad? He passed every qualification. There is no way that boy isn't possessed," he said sternly. "Demonic, sorry, I don't think it's demonic possession. Something is definitely inside of him, but I don't think it's a demon," I said, hoping he wouldn't think I'm crazy. Instead of questioning my mental health, he narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" I told him what happened when I arrived, how the blessed water had no effect, how he was able to stop my prayer, how he was able to physically bring us somewhere else, and then I found this, I said as I turned the phone towards the symbol painted on the shack door. "Wait, Carmine," I heard him yell, so I turned the phone back towards me. All color had drained from Father Aaron's face. He now looked absolutely terrified. This isn't for you, this isn't for us. I need to make calls. Carmine, you need to get out of there," he yelped. He was talking so fast that he was stumbling over his words. "But the exorcism, I can't just leave Joseph. What is it?" Father Aaron's look of terror turned to one of anger. "Carmine, I said get out. You need to leave that property immediately," he yelled, not answering a single thing. So I did. I ran the entire way back until my lungs burned. I could feel something following me in the cold air, nothing chasing me but following, mocking. I cursed to myself the whole way back. When I finally got back to the main property, Joseph was on his porch looking angry as hell. "Hey, I got a call from that priest. He said other men are coming. Just what the hell are y'all doing? Are you taking me for a ride? My son needs help," he yelled, making his way towards me. I unlocked my car, shouted apologies to Joseph, got in and sped away. Again, I felt like whatever was in those woods, whatever was inside Owen, was watching the entire time. When my car first left the driveway, I swore I heard laughter. I felt around my pockets for my phone to call Father Aaron for further clarification, only to realize that I had it in my hands and likely dropped it during my mad dash back to the car. I cursed myself again the entire way to the airport. That was 3 months ago. I was paid double my usual full wage for an exorcism. Father Aaron seemed to do anything he could to keep away from me. I called him twice, asking for an explanation, but to no avail. I had enough and took a trip out to Father Aaron's residency and confronted him about what had happened as he went to grab the paper. "Listen here, my silence should have spoken volumes. What happened once you left that property is of none of your concern, and if you continue to pry, the church will be forced to cut all ties with you. Now let this be the last time you ask. I will contact you the next time we have work for you," he said. I thought the old man was going to swing on me honestly. I kept it to myself and decided that I would do my own digging, so about a week ago I traveled back to the small town where Joseph and Owen lived. I was preparing for what I was going to say in my head when I hit a roadblock. A large fence stood in the fork in the road where Joseph's home was. In fact, the fence surrounded the entire land for 3 damn miles, the woods and all. About every 100 feet, plastered on the fence was a sign that read, "By the order of the United States government, trespassing on this land is a federal offense. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Do not cross." I've been thinking about changing my career path, maybe going to school and becoming a professor of religion. Because honestly, I think there are things worse than demons out there, and I don't want a chance coming across one again.